What's up, Kansas City? I'm your host, Glenn Brian Frizzell. Today we are filming in the historic Lincoln Building right in the heart of 18th and Vine Jazz District, Kansas City, Missouri. Today's special guest currently sits in the 1st District seat of the Jackson County Legislature. We're glad that he could come talk to us today. You are also the chairman of the county legislator, a position that you've had this year.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Burnett, you don't have any challengers you're facing in this election coming up, but I know there are a lot of hot button issues still going on in your particular district and in the Jackson County Legislature. What's going on?
Well, most people don't understand or haven't ever paid any attention to the Jackson County. You know, they know they live in Jackson County, but you don't, with the advent of internet, you had to go to the yellow pages or the white pages and try to find a phone number and try to call us, and you couldn't email us. And I've been in office 16 years, so back in the beginning there was very little internet. But now people are more involved. Now people understand a little bit better what Jackson County is. But we have a charter county. In the original days in 1826, there were 3 county commissioners like there are in most counties in America. In 1970, we voted to become a charter county, and we had our first elections in 1972, and one of the guys that was elected to one of the 9 spots is Fred Arbanis, and he's going to retire this year. The former Chiefs,
3rd District at large?
Yeah, the former Chiefs football player. But Jackson County has like a strong mayor form of government, like Chicago, like a Mayor Daley. We have a county executive, and that county executive has quite a few staff members, and he prepares a budget and we approve it. So the county executive has pretty strong powers in Jackson County. But I'm a county legislator in district for one of the 6 in districts, and there's 3 at large. As you mentioned, Fred's the 3rd district. So sometimes there's hot button issues, sometimes they're not. In 2006, we had a whole bunch of informational sessions to get the citizens of Jackson County to vote a tax for 25 years to improve the stadiums. That was a big deal. We were busy. We had informational meetings in each of our 6 districts. Last year, property reassessment notices came out, and they were flawed, and I got a lot of calls on that. But most of the time I can pick and choose what I want to work on, and a lot of times my district's pretty much all in the city of Kansas City, Missouri. So a lot of times the questions that come to me are city issues where people are frustrated and they want to have somebody else to talk to. So I'm out in the community a lot.
Well, Mr. Burnett, what's going on right now? I understand that there is a tax issue on the upcoming ballot for 1/4 cent sales tax increase for infrastructure improvement.
3/4 cent sales tax.
3/4 cent.
Yeah, that's a state issue. The state of, if it's the same one, if we're talking on the same tax, the state legislature passed a transportation proposal at 3/4 cent sales tax statewide to fund infrastructure improvements, mainly I-70. But some of that money, under an agreement that they just made, would come to the light rail operations here, and some of the money would come to replace the Broadway Bridge.
Now, transportation tax, does that fall under county?
No, this would be a state. This was put on the ballot by the House and Senate in Jefferson City, and they voted to put a 3/4 cent sales tax to a vote of the people and it will be on the ballot August 5th. So we don't have any tax increases on the ballot. We rarely put a sales tax on the ballot. Occasionally we'll put something on there as a levy on your property tax. Like there's a levy on your property tax that goes to pay for the libraries. The health goes to pay for the schools. So most of the money that we take in is through property tax. Very little of it comes in through sales tax.
Most of the money that the county gets is from property tax, very little is from sales tax.
Right.
Now, 1998 was a good year for me. I was employed, working part-time, and I was a full-time student. You have worked in the Jackson County Legislature for 16 years,
Right.
Scott, Mr. Burnett, and a lot has changed, particularly with the event of social media. How adaptable are you to using social media with your constituents as far as keeping them aware of what's going on and also finding out what's going on?
Are you saying I'm old?
No more older than 98. No.
Well, I got on the internet about 1994, and I followed it fairly well. I have a Friends of Scott email blast group that's coordinated through MailChimp, and that's through my campaign operation. Even though I don't have a candidate, I have a thing called the Friends of Scott email blast group that MailChimp coordinates. And so I put out last week that David Bassey would be playing jazz at the Pilgrim Chapel on July the 6th at 3 o'clock. Or I put out that I'm going to have a fundraiser for Ed Peterson, who's running for he's running for Johnson County Chairman in Kansas. We had a fundraiser at our home for him on Tuesday night. I use email. I feel my phone's ringing a couple times while we've been sitting here, and so people have my email and they have my phone, and they're welcome to call. And I don't get so many calls that I can't handle them all. Like if you're Jan Markison or Jim Glover or Melba Curls, you get calls.
Very important people.
You get them so many calls you just can't handle them. I can handle most of the calls that come into me, and I use email and text a lot. I've got, I think, I've got 1,200 people on this email blast system, and then I've got about 6,000 people in my Google contacts list. And I usually never get rid of a name because I want to. Well, I met you on July the 17th and in the Lincoln Building, and so I usually make a note of that. So I keep up with people pretty well. But a lot of what I do as a Jackson County legislator is network people. We have a group called the Truce Alliance. We meet once a month somewhere up and down Troost where we have a meal. We don't have any officers or bylaws. We just meet to talk about what we're doing. And you guys ought to come one of these times and tell us what you're doing.
When is it?
It's always on the fourth Wednesday of the month, and normally it would be next Wednesday, but we're not going to have one in July.
And where do you meet?
Well, we meet somewhere up and down Troost. I think we're going to meet in
That's interesting.
this building in our September meeting. I believe we are with a group. I can't remember the group's name, but Lisk or somebody that's in this building.
And what's the topic for that particular discussion, Scott?
That topic will probably be financing, refinancing of homes. But a topic may be Rex Archer comes and talks about, he's the Director of Health for Kansas City, Missouri. Or it may be someone to come and talk about the bus stop ministry at 39th and Troost. Or it may be the Bishop Sullivan Center talk about St. James Kitchen, where they have meals every night of the work night of the week. It's an informal networking group of 40 or 50 people that come together every month, and it's been very valuable. And I help coordinate it. That's and I have a legislative assistant, Beth, and we help coordinate the meetings, make sure there's food there. And I do a lot of networking with people. I do a lot of volunteer work. I drive a 16-foot van truck for Sister Berta at Operation Breakthrough. I come and get furniture from people and put it in a warehouse.
Waiting for Superman. We recently viewed that documentary on KCPT.
Yeah.
Operation Breakthrough right there on Truth. Mr. Burnett, I'm trying to remember exactly how to phrase this question. How important is it? Is it more important for an elected official to hold himself accountable to the platform and the issues that help to get him elected, or is it more important for the people to hold that elected official accountable?
Well, definitely the people, constituents need to hold their elected officials accountable. They need to make sure that they're doing their job, and there are not a lot of campaign promises and as a county legislator. Mostly, I think it's a sense of integrity. And Tony Miller was just in here. I've known him for several years. He's running, as you just interviewed him. He's a good man of integrity.
You talk about communicating integrity. On your website, you also talk about the importance of communicating your views to government officials, key opinion leaders, the media, and general public PR. You have an interesting story, Scott, about working with former President Jimmy Carter and a family tie. Could you briefly share?
Yeah, I have part of what you read there is I have a little consulting company called SGB Communications, but I grew up in South Central Kansas. I've always been intrigued by politics, and sound like you are too. I went to K-State. I worked in the Congress of the United States during Watergate summer 1973, and then I met Jimmy Carter in Topeka. I worked for him in 1976 in his presidential race, and then I worked 4 years at the White House in the scheduling office. I married a Georgia woman who had worked for Mrs. Carter in the East Wing of the White House, and we've been married 33 years. We lived over here in Midtown, and 3 kids. This November, I wanted to, we spent 10 days in Georgia and Mississippi, and I wanted to see old friends, and I had emailed the Carter Center and said I'd like to catch up with President and Mrs. Carter. I hadn't seen him in 3 years. So Mrs. Carter called Rhonda, my wife, and said, would you come and spend Thanksgiving with us? So we had a great time. We were in Plains, Georgia for 2 days, and in their home, and we've visited their home several times before, but it was a very great honor to spend Thanksgiving with him. And I've traveled with him 9 times since he left the presidency to do Habitat for Humanity houses. One time in northern Thailand, one time in the Philippines, and then the other 7 times were somewhere in the United States. Alabama, Georgia, South Dakota, Michigan, Washington, D.C. We built houses all over there. So I was really, really honored to be able to know him.
And Scott, that's certainly a depth of political experience that you bring to your constituents in District 1. Again, you've served since 1998. Can you give us a little map? What area is of the Jackson County is that?
Well, every 10 years we have the United States takes a census, as you know, and then districts are redrawn every 10 years, and there's a lot of controversy about that redrawing, the gerrymandering, the word gerrymandering. But I've had 3 different districts. In 1998, there was 1 district, and then there was a census of 1990, and I got a new district. And then in 2000, there was a new district. Maybe I've had 4 districts. And they redrew the district, and now in 2014, my district is Meyer Boulevard, which is just south of 63rd Street in Brookside. That's my southern boundary. My western boundary is state line. My eastern boundary is the Paseo. Up until you get up to around here, my district turns around it and goes out, and I have all of the 7 northeast communities, Sheffield, Indian Mound, and those. And then my district turns and goes down through, and I have a little bit of Raytown and Independence. Each of us in district, Jackson County legislators, have about 112,000 constituents.
I didn't realize that was that deep of a number.
Yeah, there's
massive a number.
Jackson County has a population of about 660,000, and the districts are divided. The 6 in districts are divided up, so we each have about 110 to 112,000 constituents.
Okay, 2 more questions, Mr. Burnett. What have you achieved during your last term that you would like to talk about, a term in review, if you will? And what projects are you currently working on that you would like to keep your constituents engaged in? That's question 1.
Okay. Well, I don't think it was in my last term, but one of the things I'm really proud of is I found that we have a jail for kids called the Family Court. And we actually have a place where kids are locked up over at 25th and Cherry, and I help get dental care for them. And I was real proud of, again, networking and bringing dental care to those kids that are sometimes in there for 30 days and maybe have never had an examination of their teeth in their life. I'm able to get them some dental care. What was the last part? Last part of that first question?
Current projects that you're working on, dental care, and
Mostly. There's no big project that I'm working on. One thing that I wanted to do for 16 years and never done is I've wanted to put that horrible word tax on the ballot. I'd like to put a 5 cent per 100 levy on the ballot. Under state law authorizes by county option the ability to put up to 5 cents per 100 on the ballot, where we collect 5 cents more per 100 on your home, and put that in a fund for seniors, to keep seniors in their home. And I haven't gotten that done yet, and I hope to do that soon, where we charge a little bit additional property tax, put the money in a fund that keeps seniors in their home instead of having to go to a nursing home. And I want to get that done soon.
why should voters vote in the August 5th election?
Well, it really doesn't make any difference whether they vote for me or not, because I don't have opposition. I assume I'll beat the write-ins.
Certainly.
But the reason they need to vote is we need to decide, people are being taxed pretty heavily now. And we always talk about, are we at the breaking point where people are not going to approve any more taxes? And there's a 3/4 cent sales transportation tax, as you mentioned, on the ballot, on the November ballot, or on the August ballot. And then there's also...
which is the general ballot?
Yeah,
Okay.
the general ballot. That's the August general ballot. And then if there's also a measure on the August ballot that would form a transportation district, huge transportation district, that would extend to streetcars. If that's voted yes, and that district is formed, then in November there's going to be a 1 cent sales tax on the ballot to fund that transportation district. So we're talking about 1 cent there, 3/4 cents in August. So the question is, are voters going to, how much longer are voters going to vote for taxes? And this Kansas City and Jackson County has been pretty good at supporting tax increases, like for the zoo, for Union Station, for the stadiums. And the question would be, how much longer are people going to be willing to invest with additional tax dollars? So I think that's a big question as we go forward.
Well, Mr. Burnett, we'd like to definitely thank you for talking to us a little bit today about your role in the Jackson County Legislature, also about why it is important for our viewers, our voters, your constituents to remain abreast of the issues that are going on in the county and that are going to be on the ballot. Please don't forget to vote in the August 5th general election. Do you have any final words for our What's Up Kansas City audience?
I want to thank you guys for what you're doing. And thank you for having me here.
We thank you, and we hope to get some more of your colleagues down here to talk to us as well.
Good.
Mr. Burnett, our pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Glenn Bryan Frizzell. Check out more video online at www.whatsupkansascity.net. Did I say 4 W's? See, I'm getting old. www.whatsupkansascity.net. And remember, the sky's the limit, so aim high. Shoot for the moon. If you miss, at the very least, you would have landed among the stars. Take care.
CMG wants you to always remember, the victory we call success goes to the best prepared. When you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Thanks.